The Brooklyn Nine by Alan Gratz, seventh inning, duck and cover, chapter 3. Jimmy watched the second hand ticking away on the clock above the chalkboard in Mrs. Holloway's classroom. Tick, tick, tick. It beat with the haunting regularity of Sputnik. But Sputnik was death that could come without warning, and Jimmy's more immediate concern was the death that was coming with warning. Eric Kirkpatrick, who had come over to Jimmy's desk that morning to tell him in no uncertain terms that there would be no escape this afternoon. Tick, tick, tick. Skipping recess and lunch, Jimmy had 5 hours and 23 minutes left until the end of the day, and maybe until the end of his life. When it was time for math, Jimmy and the rest of the students pulled out their arithmetic books, but the teacher told them they wouldn't be using those books anymore. They had ordered new math textbooks, books about geometry and algebra, and the students would begin using them within the week. They would be getting new science textbooks too. This is math you would be learning later in junior high, but the school board has decided to step things up a bit. I'm sure you'll all do fine, Mrs. Holloway said. She gave them all an encouraging smile. Instead of your usual math work today, we're going to watch a film to help prepare you for what's to come. Can someone fetch the film projector for me? Jimmy? Jimmy jumped. He'd been staring at the clock and not really paying attention. And who will go with him? Mrs. Holloway asked. Ooh, me, Eric Kirkpatrick said, waving his hand frantically in the air. Why, Eric, I've never known you to be so enthusiastic about helping, Mrs. Holloway said. You and Jimmy, then. Off you go. Jimmy couldn't move. He knew exactly why Eric had volunteered to go with him to get the projector. This time he was going to get Jimmy before he had another chance to slip away. Remember, duck and cover, Ralph whispered from behind him. Jimmy rose like a condemned man and met Eric at the door. Eric beamed at him. Back in a flash, Eric told Mrs. Holloway, and he opened the door for Jimmy with mock politeness. Jimmy walked alongside Eric down the hallway, wondering when the attack would come. Not here, he realized, not among the other classrooms. Eric would wait until they were alone together in the AV room. He could just run away, but to where? If he ran back to class, he'd be a laughing stock. If he ran home, his grandma would just send him right back. He could run off to the movie theater, spend the day there in the dark, and then head home after school was over, but then what about tomorrow? And the day after that? And the day after that? No, Great-Grandpa Snyder was right. To turn now would mean he'd be running away all his life. He'd have to move to get away from Eric Kirkpatrick, and that wasn't going to happen. But fighting him wasn't going to happen either. Great-Grandpa Snyder might have been able to stand up to bullies, but Jimmy couldn't. He'd never been in a real fight in his entire life, and he was sure if he started this one, or even fought back, it would only make things worse for him, worse on him. Jimmy was beginning to think that maybe duck and cover was the best option after all. Eric pushed him inside the AV room and closed the door behind them. The place was filled with film projectors on carts and reel-to-reel tape machines and had that metal plastic smell of the future. Oddly, Jimmy wondered if this is what Sputnik smelled like. No running away this time, Skinflint. Eric knocked him backward into a cart, and while Jimmy was trying to keep himself from falling, Eric punched him in the stomach. It was like running into his bike handlebar times 1,000, and Jimmy fell to his knees, groaning. You think you're pretty smart, don't you, Skinflint? Jimmy kept his eyes on the floor. You got nothing wise to say this time? That's what I thought. All right, Clyde, this is how it's going to go. I'm going to pound you, but if you say anything about what happened and get me in trouble, we'll just do this again, see? Mrs. Holloway asks, and you tell her you... Eric was interrupted by something howling outside. A siren. They both froze. What gives? Eric asked. Jimmy knew that sound. They'd just heard it the day before in class. It's a civil defense siren. Eric ran to the window. I see it. I see a bomb. Duck and cover! Jimmy and Eric dove underneath a strong-looking wooden table, and Jimmy covered his head and neck with his arms. You think it's the Russians? Of course it's the Russians, Skinflint. Who else would it be? But did you see a flash? I didn't see a flash. They said there would be a flash. Jimmy didn't see anything. He had his eyes shut so tight they made faint, radiating patterns against the back of his eyelids. Over the wail of the siren, Jimmy kept hearing the drone of Sputnik. Beep, 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 beep. This was it. He would never see his mother again, never see Grandma Frankie or Great-Grandpa Snyder again. His house, his school, Ebbets Field, his entire world would be gone. And then the siren stopped. In the sudden silence, Jimmy could hear their breaths against the cold tile floor. "Do you think it's over?" Jimmy asked. "I didn't hear any explosions." "I don't know, but I ain't getting up until somebody tells me to get up." The two boys waited under the table, hands over their heads, for what seemed like ages. But Jimmy wasn't going to get up until Eric did. Just when his legs were starting to cramp up, Jimmy heard the door to the AV room open. "Oh, boys, I'm so sorry." It was Mrs. Holloway. Jimmy and Eric raised their heads. "The drill is over now. You can come out." "Drill?" Eric asked. "We didn't know when it would come, but we announced it to the class when the sirens went off." "But Eric saw a bomb. He said so?" "Saw a bomb?" Mrs. Holloway said. "I'm not sure you would actually see one falling. Exploding, yes, but not falling." Eric ran to the window. "No, I was sure I saw it. Look, there it is." Jimmy and Mrs. Holloway went to the window with him. There, in the distant sky, was a small oval object with tail fins. "That's a blimp," Jimmy said. "An easy mistake," Mrs. Holloway said. "You two did very well in the duck and cover drill. Very well indeed. Now let's get that projector and get back to class." His classmates were jabbering away when Jimmy got back to class, and Mrs. Holloway let them talk while she set up the film. Ralph leaned forward. "Hey, you're not dead." "No, and neither is anybody else." "What are you talking about?" "We didn't know it was a drill. We were still ducking and covering when Mrs. Holloway came and got us." Ralph had himself a good laugh over that, and Jimmy punched him in the arm. "It's not funny." "Hey, okay. So does this mean Eric is still after you?" Jimmy looked across the room to where Eric was laughing with his friends, probably telling them all about how he beat up little Jimmy Flint. Somehow he doubted he was telling them how the two of them ducked and covered the rest of the time, thinking it was the end of everything. "No," Jimmy said. "I think it's over." But it wasn't. On the way home from school that afternoon, Eric and his buddies caught Jimmy and Ralph on the cement playground and surrounded them. "Hey, a skinflint," Eric said. "It's time to finish what we started." Jimmy couldn't believe it. Not after what they'd been through, not what after they thought had happened. It's not like he and Eric had become buddies hiding under the table, but Jimmy figured it had shown both of them there were bigger things to worry about than who beat who at card flipping. Eric cracked his knuckles. "Now where were we?" Jimmy backed up, but one of Eric's buddies shoved him forward. If Jimmy didn't think of something fast, he was going to get it. He looked around frantically for a teacher, a parent. There was nobody around. There was something in the sky, though. "Look, up in the sky. It's a bomb." "What? Huh? Where?" Eric's gang said, and everyone looked where Jimmy was pointing. "That's not a bomb, you moron," one of Eric's buddies said. "That's a blimp." "The spaz don't even know the difference between a blimp and a bomb." Eric's gang broke up in fits of laughter, but Jimmy saw right away that Eric wasn't laughing. He was glaring at Jimmy, warning him silently with his eyes not to say anything more. "Did you see a flash?" "They said there'd be a flash. Are you sure you didn't see it?" he said, overplaying it so he was sure Eric got the message. From the scowl on Eric's face, Jimmy knew he understood. If Eric beat him up, Jimmy would tell everybody how he ducked and covered and mistaken a blimp for a bomb. He might still put Jimmy in a body cast, but Eric's reputation as a tough guy would be ruined forever. It felt wrong to make fun of Eric for being scared. Jimmy had been just as frightened, maybe even more so. But Jimmy wasn't the one picking the fight. "Come on, Eric. Pound him," one of the boys said. Eric sneered at Jimmy, then gave in. "Not today." Eric's buddies couldn't believe it. "Not today, skinflint," Eric said, pointing a finger at his nose. "But one day, when you least expect it," he smashed a fist into his open hand. Boom. He was just making a show of being tough for his gang, and Jimmy didn't say anything more. He didn't have to. He and Eric both knew what would happen if he made good on his threat. And it wasn't just his word against Eric's. Mrs. Holloway knew all about him ducking and covering from a blimp, too. Eric turned and walked away, and his confused friends followed him. Jimmy let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. What just happened?" Ralph asked. "He was going to pummel you." "He was, but it's over. For real this time." "What do you mean it's over?" He just said one day when you least expect it, boom. He won't do it, Jimmy said. Not now and not ever. He looked up into the sky, trying to see Sputnik. And I don't think the Russians will either. He was beginning to understand now, and it felt like a great weight was lifting off his shoulders. What are you talking about? Jimmy smiled and told Ralph all about mutually assured destruction as they looked for a place to flip cards.